Welcome to Learn Commerce PU online classes. Don't forget to like our video and subscribe our YouTube channel for all the updates.
In last class, we already completed some of the concept, or maybe in this class, we completed the example of the copy constructor by using, that means the question, the factorial of a number using our copy constructor, and I copied from TMP to the var. Like that I made some of the calculation and finally will get the answer of before copying and after copying here. Now let's see the next concept about our constructor overloading. Now before going to tell about our constructor overloading, one simple meaning of the constructor. So what do you know about our constructor? A constructor is a special member function and that is used in classes. That means such member function, special member function we are going to use in classes, and why we using? To initialize object of the class automatically, to give some value to the object we using such a special member function, or in simple way we can say that the automatic initialization is carried out using such a special member function, that is called as the constructor. Or constructor construct, that means data members of an object define a value to the data members. So all those meaning that is applicable to our constructor. Now we know that we are in the concept of constructor overloading, and you already know the meaning of the overloading. That means the function name is the same, but by using different argument, different number of the argument, we are going to use the function to perform different kind of the operations. Okay, so this is, so we can say that the constructor, so in this case the constructor are used to initialize the data members of an object here, that means to give some value to the data members. But my question is, the default constructor is used for the purpose of constructor overloading. Is it possible to use the default constructor? No, we can say that the default constructor cannot be used for these purposes. Why? Because we know that in default constructor the function name, but there is no any argument we are going to use. Whatever we are going to use in opening of the parenthesis, closing of the parenthesis, everything that is equal to int value is equal to 0, that is equal to no argument we are going to use. So such a default constructor we can't use for the purpose of our constructor overloading purposes. Now what's the meaning of the constructor overloading? So the constructor overloading means specifying the additional meaning to it. It gives some important meaning by passing the required argument. Correct, Nokia? For each member function, for each constructor member function, we passing different type of the argument. If you are passing different type of the argument, then we can take for our constructor overloading. So we can say that it providing, it specifying the additional meaning to it by passing the required arguments, okay, to the function. So depending on the requirement, one can define any number of constructor, overloaded constructor in a single class or in a same class here. Why? Because how the compiler going to think about which operation they want to perform. So we can say that depending on the type and number of the argument passed, the compiler decide which version of the constructor to invoke object creation. That means depend on the compiler going to think about this one, which operation they want to execute. Why? Because everything going to execute by our compiler only. So let's see one simple example for our constructor overloading. So to find the simple interest, I am going to find out the simple interest value by using the constructor overloading example. So one simple header file is the hash include iostream.h, and maybe in case you want to use some other header file, you can use it. Many header file, we know that what are the header file we need to complete one simple program of the object oriented oriented programming, that is the constructor overloading. And class is the keyword and simple interest is the name of the class, user defined name. And in our private, I am declaring some of the member data. The member data are PTR, that means principal, time, rate, and also I am going to make, by using the PTR value, I am going to make the calculation of the simple interest. So all are going to declare by using private access specifier. Why? Because all are called as the member data of the class simple interest. And here floating point. Why? Because in our time sometime we are using 2.5, maybe the rate of interest 12.5, like that maybe we are going to use. So it's better to use the data type as the float here. So going to declare by using some of the member data of the class, that is the PTR simple interest. And later next one, it is the constructor overloading. That means whatever the name is there of the class, we need to use again and again. Clear this point here. So in our public member function, I am declaring, or that means I am going to define, in this example I am going to define the member, special member function, that is the simple interest here. So the simple interest, so this example suitable, or this definition of a special member function simple interest is suitable to our default constructor. Why? Because in bracket no any arguments are there. If no any arguments, there is no any calculation. So just only opening of the floor bracket, closing of the floor bracket I used here. So this one is about our simple interest default constructor definition. And later in second example, in second definition in this program, again I am using simple interest, but by using 3 argument constructor, 3 argument here, that are, one is the float x, comma, float y, comma, and the float z, but there is no any semicolon. Why? Because it is called as the definition of the special member function, that is the simple interest. And just in this case I am going to make the copy from one to another. Whatever the value is there in x, such one going to add it to the p, and y value going to add it to the r here, and later next one the z value going to add to the variable to the T, okay, and closing of the flower bracket. Clear this point here. Why? Because it's a constructor overloading. So one member function, special member function I used as a default constructor, and the second member function I used by using 3 argument constructor, and in second function I copied from one to another. Clear this point here, one to the another, and closing of the, why? Because I opened the flower bracket, so such flower bracket going to close. And with that we also need to use some of the member function of the class simple interest. Why? Because here whatever I want to display, or maybe some calculation going to occur by using member function here, special that means member function of the class. So the member function of the class I used the name as the compute SI, okay, it going to make the calculation of the simple interest. So compute SI, open and closing, this is called as the definition of the member function. And in definition of the compute SI I am using one simple message. The message is the simple interest, and while going to, why? Because it's going to make the calculation computation here, and the calculation as P into T into R divide by 100. Clear this point here. So such message going to, after the, it going to display the value, and later by using the calculation it going to display the value of the simple interest here. Then opening of the flower bracket, such flower bracket going to close, and one more flower bracket by using the semicolon. Clear this point here. This is called as the end of the class definition. And after the end of the class definition, sure we are going to use the main function. So such main function by using the void main. Clear this point. In this example I am using the void main here. So the main function of the program, and in our main function of the program I am declaring some of the objects. Some of the object going to declare by using the class name. We know that the class name is the simple interest. So I declared some of the object. The object are SI1 and SI2 here. Why? Because the SI1 there is no any argument. Clear this point here. In SI1 You can use any object, you can access any object, any tag here, but also for our first special member function, no any argument we passed. So just because of this reason, SI1 I am going to declare, and the second, why, because in second special member function I passed some of the argument, 3 argument I passed here. So for this SI2, it using some of the values, that is the principal and maybe the time and the rate of interest. So the principal 10,000 and the time 2 years here, and the rate of interest 12%. Clear this point here, 12, so 12.0 and closing of the parenthesis and semicolon going to use for this calculation. And later next one I am accessing, why, because when you are going to access SI1 there is no any calculation, correct? No, why, because we didn't did any operation in this case here, no any operation we performed. So that means it's a waste to use to access the member function SI1. So directly whatever the calculation we perform in SI2 here, such one I am going to access by using the member function. So SI2, it is the object name dot compute SI, it is the member function. Why, because you know about this one, how we are going to access the member of the class by using the object name dot member function name, correct? No, member function name, then opening of the floor bracket and closing of the floor bracket in between. If you want you can use the get ch, but it is a very simple example, okay? So just only if you want you can use the get ch also, but no return 0. Why, because the main function is the void. If you are using int main, then only after the get ch return 0 going to use. So after the completion of the program will get the output as the simple interest. It going to perform the value for P, that is the 10,000 time 2 rate 12%, will get the answer as the 2400.0 here. So while going to explain about this program, about this simple program, we can say that in this program there are 2 constructors are there. The 2 constructors are simple interest, okay? This one is the first one, and second one is the simple interest, float x, float y and float Z. There are 2 constructors are there. The first one is the simple interest and the second one is the simple interest, float x, float y, float z here. The first one, it is the example of the default constructor, 0 argument constructor, so no any calculation. But second one is the 3 argument constructors. Clear this point? The second one is the 3 argument constructor, that is float x, float y and float z. So when you are going to perform any constructor overloading program, okay, kya constructor overloading program, then it is the job or duty of the programmer or the user also to define one constructor. The constructor is the default constructor. Why? Because in this program constructor overloading, the function name is the same, but going to use again and again repeatedly, okay? Here we are using bit.ly such function here. So this is the example or the suitable example for our constructor overloading program. Thank you.